Okay, we are recording. Bernard Purdie, how are you today?
Ah, pretty good, sir.
Lovely, lovely. Well, look, it's an absolute honor to get to sit and chat to somebody that, I mean, let's have this right, the most recorded drummer in the history of music. I mean, that's something pretty impressive. Um, and we'll talk as the show unfolds about some of the artists that you've worked with. But I want to sort of take you back to start, please, Bernard, and ask you what initially drew you to to playing the drums, and how do you go from finding a drum kit, learning to play the drums, to then finding your way into the music industry?
Well, playing the drums was easy. I heard the drums in my hometown of Elkton, Maryland, and I begged my mother to let somebody walk me down so I could see the drums and hear them and ask and see if I could possibly, you know, get a lesson. Because I already knew that I was going to play drums. I was already humming and singing around the house. So drums, I was beating drums. I was beating on everything, including my mother's pot. But that was how it got started for me. And then my mother told my older brothers, one of the older brothers, take Bugsy down the street, let him hear the drummer down there. And his name is Mr. Haywood. So, of course, I didn't know him. And for me, it was like, okay, I mean, I'm ready to go hear this. And I was around, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old, but I knew that I was going to play drums. Just from hearing the drummers in the school, anywhere I heard the marching sound, I'm going to play drums. So it was all in my body. It's in my mind, heart, and soul, all of it.
Bernard, how do you go from getting that drum kit and kind of finding your feet playing it and and getting to a level where you want to start playing with other people and such? How does it then how do you then find yourself moving into the realms of working with established artists and people that were people that you was looking up to at the time?
Well, I was looking up to all people in the music field. It didn't matter. I mean, even my brothers and sisters, we sang in church. Well, I should say they sang in church, not me. I was humming and beating my hands and this, that, and the other. So no, no, no. I'm going to play the drums. But I knew that at the age of 3 and 4, and that's what I wanted to do. So I didn't have any excuse not to be able to do it because my mother let me beat on her pots and pans. And that was the joy of my life. I mean, it was wonderful. It was totally, totally wonderful. And after a couple of years beating up my mother's pans that I was playing on, she brought me into the kitchen and she said, Bugsy, come in, come in, come inside, come inside. So there was pots and pans on the table. And she said, all right, see this? These pots and pans. You see this? She said, they're yours. I said, really? Really? Yeah, oh yeah, okay. I was so nervous I couldn't keep myself still. The next thing I know, she said, wait, wait, I want to show you something else. See these pots and pans? They're mine. Don't touch. I said, oh, oh, mama. Don't touch. You can cry all you want, but don't touch. These are mine. Those are yours. Do whatever you want with it. Boy, I felt like the world was letting me down. But knowing my mother, she had a heavy hand. So I wasn't about to fight with her because I couldn't win. So I said, okay, all right. Thinking all along that I'm going to try to sneak in and play her new pots and, and pans. But no, never happened. Never happened. But I had to go back to my pots and pans, and she let me have, and I still made music with it. I made some music, but I was happy. Took me a while to get used to going back to them, but
Yeah.
happy. Didn't know I was that happy. I didn't think I would ever be that happy again, but it worked. She got the pots and pans, gave them to me, and I just went on back to practicing and playing and thinking about how I'm going to get these new pots and pans. But no.
Can you remember the first time where you sat behind a drum kit and played with other musicians?
Oh, well, that happened by the time that I was, was I'd say anywhere between 6 and 7. There were other musicians that Mr. Haywood was teaching. And the beauty of it for me was Mr. Haywood would let me play only just remember, you don't exist. You cannot say anything. You cannot do anything until I say so. Then I want you to show them how to play what we're talking about. And I said, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. I'm like, yes, sir. That's all I could. Sit down, sit down. Not around. Sit down, sit down. So that's how everything came to me. He told me, he says, long as you know that you don't exist, do not touch or say anything until I ask you. And I said, yes, sir. No problem, no problem, no problem. And I say the same thing over and over and over and over and over because he would ask me to play for the other students because they weren't getting it. And for some reason, I got it immediately. Anything that he said, play this, play this. No problem. Jump up, sit down, play it. Now go back, sit down. But I didn't know I was a helper. I never thought about it that way. I just knew that I could do it.
Yeah.
And that's how it went for a long time.
I
Long time.
want to sort of move forward a little bit, and as knowing your work ahead of this conversation, I've revisited it and I've done a deeper dive on the artists that you've worked with, and the list is ridiculous, Bernard. It's absolutely incredible, the people that you've worked with. It'd be, I think I'd be letting the listeners of my show down if I didn't ask you to tell us a little bit about working with Aretha, or working with James Brown, and any fond memories or stories that you've got around those times, and because these are iconic people, and we only see what the media presents us, and to have an opportunity to speak to somebody that was the backbone of that, holding that rhythm section together. Like, can you just give us a little snapshot of first of all what it was like working with Aretha?
Working with Aretha was the biggest highlight of my life, the biggest, because at the time I was also working for King Curtis, who was the band leader for Aretha. The other part of that is that I also worked for King Curtis, but I was the bookkeeper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, this is where things really, really happen. You know, I could do just about anything and everything, and I did. And that part of it was interesting, was so interesting because that's where I found out where the guys in the band could, ask for money, get in advance. Okay, that's their business. King Curtis would walk by me and say, Cornell Dupree got two. Chuck Rainey got 1.5. Just nobody knew that I was actually the bookkeeper for King Curtis because I had to write everything down because at the end of the week is when they got paid. So he never had to worry because I was close to a photographic memory. I knew everything he said, and I just go write it down. And by the end of the week, he checked me out and find out what's what. When he go to pay the guys, because they did all this work together, they thought that he might make a mistake and overpay. That was my job, giving him the right information because he walked by me and just say to me, Chuck got two, Cornell got two, 1.5. Didn't matter what the number was, but I go and write it down because they were older and they were the ones that was working all the time.
Yeah.
And for me, I set up the drums. I did everything that a drummer had to do. Everything. But and including being the bookkeeper.
And so how did that lead you to working with Aretha? And can you remember that the first time you worked with her?
Oh yes. Working with Aretha the first time was in the studio when things were happening and going on. She actually worked first with Columbia Records. That was her first real, as you say, real company that she went with.
Sure.
And we did that and we were making the records. That was part of my job, playing and, doing things like I'm supposed to. I'm now one of the people that did some of the recording. So my job was also, just like it was bookkeeper, I could go in and sit down and play with her because I was doing demos for all the different artists around. All of the artists, everybody did demos. I didn't know the difference between a demo and a master. So, fortunate for me, not knowing the things that I did were good enough to become masters. So I just continued doing the same thing, making demos for the different artists because I was also between Columbia Records and Atlantic Records. Between those two record companies, I was working all the time. And of course, the demos I was doing for all the other people. So I had demos that worked for me from one to the other to the other. But working with Aretha and working with King Curtis gave me the lift of having something better and being able to say, I can do the job. I can do the job. I can do the job. And it was happening throughout. All my demos became masters. Surprisingly enough, even for me, they all became masters because I thought I was doing masters anyhow because I thought it was that good.
Yeah.
No problem. Nobody else came in behind me. Bam. They were selling. Bam. So everything was A-OK for me.
I'm curious for the creative process, what that's like being in a studio with artists like of the caliber of the ones that you've worked with, Bernard. And history tells us that to talk about James Brown, that he was like, he didn't mess around. People had to be on point when they were recording and playing with James Brown. Have you got any kind of instances of seeing him at work like that, where you had to be on point to be working with James Brown? Is that true?
It's definitely true. And at that time, by that time, I thought I was making big, big time money. And my monies then jumped up to be $125 a week. But there was a rule for James Brown. One of the things, you called him Mr. Brown. Everybody in the band, it was always Mr. Brown. Okay, no problem, no hassle. But an incident happened while I was in the band, and I was playing just like the other two drummers. Well, James got upset one day, and when he gets upset, he sings and dances. And he was singing and dancing one day, and he hollered over, okay, Bernard got two. I stopped playing. Wait a minute. Why are you finding me? You, no. He fined me $25 for making a mistake. I didn't make the mistake. There were two other drummers in this band. I didn't make a mistake. So we quieted down a little bit, and I went to him on the break, and I said, Mr. Brown, I didn't make a mistake. I didn't make a mistake. And he just looked at me. So I said it for the third time. I didn't make a mistake. He put up his hand. He said, it's too late now. I said, no. Well, the rest of the day, nothing really got done. And I was quite upset because I'm being fined $25 for a mistake that I didn't do. Of course, well, he said, well, who else? You're the drummer. There were two other drummers in the band. I didn't make the mistake. Then he asked me, well, who was it? He says, I don't know. I didn't make a mistake. So that carried on for a little while during the rest of the day and the rest of the evening. And then time to finish. And I went back to him. I said, Mr. Brown, we got to resolve this because you can't find me for something that I didn't do. And he looked at me and said, well, the damage is done now. It's over. I said, no, 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 no. Uh, I didn't make a mistake. Well, who did it? I didn't make a mistake. I did not say who did anything. I didn't do it. So don't blame me for this mistake and you keeping $25 of my money. So things went on until it was time to leave. When it was time to leave that evening, I went back to him again and I said to him, Mr. Brown, I didn't make a mistake, so you cannot find me for something that I didn't do. And he said it again. It's too late now. Damage is done. And I said to him, are you sure this is how you want this to be? He said, yes. And I said, okay. I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice. He just looked at me. Okay, and walked off. 2 weeks later, I was packing my drums. Instead of putting them on the bus, I was taking them off the bus. I was taking them off the bus, and the guys in the band, they're all going, oh, come on, man. Don't do this. Don't do this. Man, you're the best thing that's happened around here. You know, I can't do this. The man has to respect me. That's just like I have to respect him. That's fine. But I am not taking the blame for somebody else. Sure enough, I left. 2 years later, the arranger, he called me, Mr. Lowe. He called me, he says, Bugsy, listen, I know that you and Mr. Brown have, I said, no, I don't have any problems anymore. I don't have any problems anymore. He says, good, because I want you to play. We're doing 2 albums in 2 weeks. I said, oh, wonderful, marvelous, great. I want you there. I said, sure, no problem. As 2 weeks came, we started playing the music around 7 o'clock, and we played from 7 o'clock to 8. Well, Mr. Brown did not show up until 8 o'clock. That's fine. I mean, he's the boss. He'll show up when he wants. We played to 8 o'clock. He comes in and he's now listening to what was happening. Oh, yeah, yeah. He was so excited. He was so excited. And he was ready to go into the studio, to go into the control room where he's going to be. And I got up. His arrogance was still there. I got up and I said to Mr. Brown, I said, we've been working for an hour. The union says we're supposed to stop. We have a 10-minute break. So I just got up, walked out, went to the bathroom, and came back. The guys in the band, nobody had moved from their chairs. I came back and he said, okay, Mr. Purdie, okay, all right, you win. Win? I said, oh, this was our break. That's all. One thing led to another, right on through. During that day, we worked until 3 o'clock in the morning. 3 o'clock in the morning. We recorded 2 albums of music. 2. And out of those 2 albums of music, 4 of the songs became hit records all around the world. 4 of them. Mr. Lowe, who was the arranger and everything else, came to me to thank me for doing my job and not allowing things to get in the middle. And because at that time, there was no other drummer that read music, and all this music was all written out. So there was no time to waste. He wanted this stuff to be done. So it was done. So that's how I got back in working with him again and then making more records later. But 4 of those records became super hit records for Mr. Brown.
That's incredible.
Super hit.
Incredible. I mean, we're talking about artists that are very innovative. When we talk about, James Brown, Miles Davis, Aretha Franklin, Roy Ayers. Something that also was very innovative was the Purdie Shuffle. And I'm going to ask you, for the listeners of this show that may not know what that is, can you explain the Purdie Shuffle, please?
I certainly can. The Purdie Shuffle got started by where I lived in Elkton, Maryland, from the railroad, the sound of the train coming to a stop. And it was a sound that knocked my socks off because I heard this, this woo, 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 the train slowing down, and slowing down. And I liked that sound. I liked, oh, well, that sounds good. That's wonderful. So when the train leaves, it's got to start back up again, and then it gets to a certain point, and the train is going too fast. The feel, the sound of the rail stop. You lose it. You lose the total sound. But at that time, we only did shuffles the old-fashioned way, which had been done for more than 100 years. And the tempo could be, it could be as fast as they wanted to be or whatever. But nobody had thought of this other rhythm that I heard. So I started doing this, playing up and under and around the beat on ballads, on that triplet ballad. And this was where it came from in the beginning. So this is a ballad now. Ballads, you just had to play straight. But what happened was I started cutting it in half the time. Zoom, 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 do, zoom, do, zoom, do, dum, do, zoom, do, zoom, do, zoom. So I started making this work in the half of the time and keeping that rhythm flowing to where it worked in a balance. Simple. It always worked. It didn't work when you got past certain field, certain with that engine running so fast. I mean, it just disappears. But I kept it going for a long, long time, trying to stick my little halftime shuffle in balance. Sure enough, it worked. It worked many, many times, even though they didn't know what I was doing. But it worked because it gave more air, more love, more happening, and out of the way, keeping a rhythm that worked for everybody. It didn't matter. And the Purdie Shuffle was born. And it's still running smooth 50 years later.
Fantastic. Having that as a constant and being that signature Bernard sound, that shuffle. In and around that, how would you say that your drumming has evolved over the years, both technically and stylistically?
Oh, I like that. I like that very much. Well, technically, because the Purdie Shuffle comes from a two-bar phrase, you have less work to do. You have less playing that you have to do. The relaxation is there. And you find that you can bring the tempos down on records. And 90% of those records would happen in R&B, a little bit of pop, a little bit of sound, a little bit of everything. I put it any place and everywhere I could to make sure that the halftime worked. It only works when you're doing it slow. It doesn't work when you're doing it fast because the train part goes too fast, so you lose it. You actually lose it. But when you doing that here, down here, you got that smoothness. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That shuffle will work every time, but only when you're doing it slower. Because the speed cuts out everything. Not only cuts out everything, but it'll make you tired. And you're going to lose your time and tempo if you keep raising when you don't realize that the shuffle, the Purdie Shuffle, really only works when you're cutting the time and cutting the beat in half, time-wise. It works every time. I have hundreds, down to thousands of records that the Purdie Shuffle is on. And the beauty for me is watching and listening to all the young drummers of the world and the older ones too, wanting to learn it So I've been preaching it for the last 40 to 50 years, and they hear it, but they seem to think that it's a lot more work. It's not. It's not more work. It's more relaxation. Down here, you can think and turn. I used to do it all the time with my fingers. So a lot of guys finally started to hear it with my fingers and said, oh yeah, that'll work. But they think that that's the only place they can get it. No, no, it's not. It's half time. It's a 2-bar phrase. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And all the other stuff is nuance, fun time. And I used to sit down and I'd do it so I could help our folks on my leg. Backbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And your left hand comes up anyhow to help with that locomotive. And that's all it comes from. It comes from that train coming into the station. Do not try to play the Purdie Shuffle fast because you're going to fall on your face. It's that simple. It's that simple. You will fall on your face if you try to overplay it too fast.
Can you tell me a little bit about your approach to collaborating with artists when you get that call? Because there's a lot of session musicians that will go into the studio and work with artists, but I imagine there was so many artists that requested that they wanted you, and when you find yourself in that studio with that person for the first time, and the recordings going down, how do you approach that creative process? Like, do you suggest, what's the sort of protocol, for you in that studio? Does it vary between different artists? And can you give us an example?
Any example comes from time and tempo. If everybody would stop thinking about how fast, how many notes they can put in, if you do that, if you stop thinking about how many notes you can put in and less being more, remember those words, less being more, the relaxation that you can come up with will make things work so well for everybody. The songs, I don't care if you want to do the Purdie Shuffle, even in rock, even in country, even in anything that you want. It's the halftime feel. And you have to think halftime. Stop worrying about all the notes because they hear this undercurrent. You hear this, but you're not concentrating on the backbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The time itself, you don't have to worry. But then the emotion that you do, the feel of your body will relax you and give you all that little extra time. Stop worrying about how loud everything is. It's not about loud. It's about a comfort zone. It's a comfort zone, period. And when I would do it for so many people that I've done around the world, I just do it. I sit down on the drums. I do it with my hands. I just do it. Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Da, 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 dun, dun. Still a ballad. Uh, uh, dun, 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 dun. That part of the music is what makes everybody get into the same motion. Everybody can end up joining in. The guitar players can double what they want. The piano player can double and triple what he wants or they want. It doesn't matter. But when you hold everybody together and have that feel, it's all about how it's counted. You counter yourself by halftime. You got to think halftime. You cannot think twice as much. Don't do that to yourself because twice as much means you're just going to be playing a lot of notes.
Yeah.
That is not it. It's and you can do even less if you want.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that backbeat becomes so important that everybody in the band feels it.
Yeah.
So everybody else starts thinking less being more.
Yeah. Bernard, I'm going to ask you a question now that is essentially asking you to pick your favourite child, which is crazy. Of all the recordings that you've played on over the years, if you cast your mind back, what recording would you say that holds the fondest memories for you?
I had to make a decision for myself. I have been asked this question 10,000 times. And to play safe, because I have played with over 2,500 different artists and over 4,000 records that these things are on. Aretha Franklin is my favorite artist, so I can play safe because there's 2,500 different artists.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Aretha.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So that was enough for me to get me out of trouble.
Good
And
answer.
it worked. It really does work because Aretha, she loved doing everything. And when you do something with her and she likes what she does, guarantee you, you're going to move on down the line. She's definitely one of the people in the world that has given me the opportunity to work and try my way of so many, many songs.
Yeah.
Because she's always looking for hit songs.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking to give hit songs. It works for everybody.
Fantastic.
And because the world loves Aretha, and I kissed her 10,000 times. Thank you, Aretha. Thank you. Thank you.
Bernard, that was so beautifully answered, and I've got a million and one questions, but I'm mindful of taking up too much of your time today. Um, but the reason that you're in the UK, tell us a little bit about why you're here and what's going to be happening in the coming week.
Well, the coming weeks, one of the things that happened with me is that I do a lot of teaching. I've been teaching for 50 plus years. And I hate to say it, but my teacher said I was going to be a teacher. But okay, I finally accepted my destiny. But the beauty of it is that I like what I do and I like who I am and what it's all about. people have given me the chance and the opportunity to give my little thing a chance to work. I don't push anything on people, but I try to, when we run into little problems, and you're always going to run into some problems. If somebody got an idea that can help resolve some of the problems easier, speak up. Don't be afraid to speak up. Just don't insist, because then you'll be out of a job. The point is that the musicians that you hire are there to make sure that they give you the best of what you're looking for. And it's that simple. The best of what you're looking for, because they want to work too. And the difference is that so many musicians, especially drummers in the world, have now become thankful to have all of these different ways of making records, making hit records. Keeping it simple. Keeping it simple is always the best bet to make a hit record. I don't care who you are. We have a saying, and the one thing that I had to be careful about is when I made this statement, keep it simple, stupid. It is not about calling somebody stupid. That has absolutely nothing. It's about you. Keep it simple, and then you can get everything that you want. Guaranteed. You can get what you want because it works. It works. And your little 2 cents can be the difference between hit record and just another record that might be recognized. Hit records. 2,500 hit records. I don't need to count anymore because the people do give me the chance and the opportunity because of so many records that are hit records in the world today. And that's all I ever ask. Simply because I got a big mouth. When I hear something, I always want to say something. And if I feel that we're not getting it done and we're wasting time, I don't mind speaking up. I really don't. Because normally the people will pay me, they'll sometimes I get extra money. Very seldom do you, but sometimes you do. But the beauty of it is that it becomes a long-term relationship with people around the world. I get called every day of the year. Every day of the year, somebody calls and talk. They want to talk. And they got something specific they want to say and try. And the best thing, what people know, not only just Aretha, but Steely Dan. Steely Dan was one of the hardest people in the world that you got a chance to say something. But they gave me freedom. They gave me freedom. And that is why so many of their records is still going today. Absolutely. That little thing of freedom that I've had with them, it's wonderful. And I had plenty of freedom with Aretha, which takes me right back to, to respect and all. You name it. My little drum solo, another time, another place.
Well, look, before I let you go, Bernard, if people are going to get an opportunity to see you do what you do best, because you're playing the 100 Club, right?
Yes, sir.
and that's going to be on the 7th of October, I believe.
I believe you're right.
And what can people expect from that show?
Fun. I have more fun than a burning monkey. Please, people, when they come, don't ever be afraid to ask for something. I don't have a problem with talking about anything. Now, I have to be very careful because my wife says you talk too much. Okay,
My
you're
wife
right.
says that too, mate.
She's right. She's right. But people ask. People do ask, and they really want to hear the question. Okay, all right. I love what I do. I love it. And I'm like the happiest person in the world. I just got a plaque from the folks that are bringing me out here. Oh, woo.
Fantastic.
Right. This is wonderful. This is absolutely wonderful that I'm getting the chance and an opportunity to do my thing all over again, year after year after year, and still here at my nice age that I'm gonna turn it over to him because I'm so happy. I am just so happy.
And
So he can get a little better details about what we're going to do the next couple of days because they have all they got it together. I received this plaque, and go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I can see it. Well, us at Drum Dog were very pleased and fortunate to be able to bring Mr. Purdie over for this week. So it tied in really nicely with the UK Drum Show. We had a fantastic time up there. We met so many people, and there was a really magical moment on the Sonar stand as well, where you just started playing. Just you went out, you touched the kit, and we're like, I'll have a go at that. So you got your sticks and just did start playing, just noodling, and then all of a sudden there's like a handful of people on the stand, maybe five or six, and they just thought, oh, okay, oh, it's a nice playing. And then I turned around, there's a few more people were drifting in, and then a few more, and all of a sudden there's like 50 people standing there, and then 60, and there's the whole room. This is during noisy time. I don't know if you've ever been to the UK drum show, but there's a 15 period where you can play anything. Then somebody comes around and tells you to stop, and yeah, quiet time's over. Nobody said that to Mr. Bernard. He carried on playing. And then you stopped and everyone shut up and you said, now you can hear it. Honestly, all you could hear at one point was the shuffle, and people just kept coming and coming. And I think at the end of it, so nice that they had about 100 people on the stage. People were running in, and it was just a magical moment, and just incredible to see that effect that your playing had to those people. So that was the UK Drum Show, a magical experience there. The rest of this week, we've been doing a little bit of filming for the Drum Dog website as well. So we've put together a nice little package that we're going to publish on the website and for YouTube. So you can find that on drum.dog. And then towards the end of this week, starting tomorrow, you've got a few students who have booked lessons who are talking about being a teacher. So it's been a wonderful opportunity while you're here to allow some people to come and have some time with you. So there's 2 days worth of lessons, and then as you say on Monday at the 100 Club, we've got a show, and the show is going to be split into two parts. We've got the first half is like a fireside chat with Ralph Roll from Nile Rodgers and Chic.
I know Ralph.
Yeah, oh great. So yeah, Ralph's coming in to do an interview on stage. I'm sure people will be asking questions. It's going to be great. Then after that, we've had Mo Pleasure come in to be musical director and put together a band for the show after that. So we have to finish off the week and your time in the UK. We have a performance with some of the most popular songs, I think, on there. Some special guests as well. And I hear Rocksteady might be on the list. So
Fantastic.
We're going to have a ball. That's what it comes down to. We're going to have a great time. And I thank them. Ralph has put my head into another part of the world again. And it's a wonderful feeling to know how many drummers around the world are still wanting to play the Purdie Shuffle. I love it. I love it. And I love it. And I thank you for asking, because I have a major problem. My wife says I talk too much, but that's all right.
That's fine with me. That's
She's-
fine with me.
She's usually right, but I do. I love letting people know how things work for me and why it's worked for 50, 60, 70 years. I'm happy. And that's why the Purdie Shuffle is still going strong today. It works.
Long may it continue as well, my friend. Long may it continue. It's been an absolute privilege to talk to you today and to ask you the questions that I've got to ask you. You've been very generous with your time. I can't thank you enough. I wish you all the best for your time in the UK and for the show at the 100 Club. And once again, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.